Live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are up and at 'em on a super Saturday. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. To all of my diehard fans up out there, we are live in the 702 in Las Vegas. iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. Those are the places you can like, follow, subscribe. And we're also live on the Fox D Network. Bottom half of the hour, we are at it again, folks. Prime predictions. Week 11, we went 8-6, and we dodged a bullet last week. But I am very confident in all of my picks. And I honestly can't wait for how Prime Predictions is really going to pan out. But a very good special guest here, Ty Owens of the Sports Talk with T, will be joining me here in a few minutes. Man, we had a lot to cover. And again, I was like, man, I watched the Thursday night game. By the way, Thursday night was so much fun. Went to a really good charity event for a real good friend of mine, former linebacker. I will have him on the show come December, so you guys do not want to end up missing out on that. But it was a great charity event. It was a great cause for all the young kids out there when it comes to building their futures and really just, supporting a great cause altogether. Lots of great people that I've spoke to and made a lot of really good connections all along the way. So there's a lot of things that I do want to talk about. First and foremost, I do want to start off with the Thursday night football game. First and foremost, here's what we really need. This is what we really need to think about when we think about the Tennessee Titans. So every time we've watched Green Bay now for the last few seasons and for the last few weeks, we love Aaron Rodgers. But this season right now was rocky and it was rough. The entirety of the game itself, and while I was watching it at the charity event, I was kind of shocked. But then again, I wasn't. Because the Titans, let me be honest with you, we don't talk about them enough. They feel like the ghosts in your closet that you're trying to literally brush away or ignore, but they're always there in your closet waiting to haunt you on any given Thursday, Sunday, or whatever the hell the day of the week is. But that's who the Titans are. And the Titans are mostly those bullies that'll just punch you right up on the head, go out to Lambeau Field, sock you in the mouth, and then go back home. Titans are a well-ran, buttoned-up, yet fierce football team. And maybe that's mostly by Mike Vrabel. Vrabel's a smart guy. And a lot of people had their doubts about the Titans. I don't think I do. I mean, you've got a modern-day Earl Campbell in Derrick Henry. You've got a quarterback who knows how to distribute the football. I know a lot of people want to remind us about what the playoffs looked like years ago. But in the end, you have at least a serviceable quarterback for the time being. I ain't worried about that. But one of my biggest things is that the Packers, let's be honest about a few things. First of all, Aaron Rodgers absolutely has that right, where if he's not all in and he's just cashing in his retirement money, then so be it. Aaron Rodgers has been in this league long enough where he's shattered records, has a Super Bowl on his belt, and is under a self-owned franchise because it's ran by everyone in Lambeau. They're the ones who pay for the tickets. They're the ones who pay for the merchandises. And they're all there, and it gets wild out there in Lambeau. If you've ever been to a Packer game in Green Bay, Wisconsin, you can see how small the town is, how everyone is invested. It's like when you go to a high school or a college football atmosphere, and that is what the Packers are. But this told you that Thursday night. Matt LaFleur is not an innovative coach. This was really disappointing to see Matt LaFleur with his back against the wall, and there were no adjustments. Here's the thing. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are the best running back tandems that you could ask for in Green Bay. But you've got a lot of young wide receivers. Christian Watson, I know people are like, oh, he's looking to be the next big thing. I've got good high hopes on Christian Watson. We didn't see that beginning of the season because it's rookies off of an FCS schooling that they're in an NFL realm and they're trying to adjust. That goes the same for Romeo Doubs. But Aaron Rodgers is not that kind of guy who will sit you down, just talk with you, even if it's over lunch or if it's over dinner and going through the playbooks. Aaron's not that guy. We've already heard about it, how much he teeter-tottered on retirement and how he drank a iced tea of psychedelic, ayahuasca, and he found his own realm. I think he's found the realm of, I'm dealing with all these young kids. It feels like I'm in parenthood. I've got a girlfriend named Blue of Earth. And look, very spiritual, but sometimes you kind of get yourself way too out of there. You get way out of there with the media. And media is not going to pay attention to that. My only thing with Aaron is you work with what you have. Look at all the quarterbacks that we see right now in this league. Patrick Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill, and he's working with 9 to 10 different wide receivers. Yet Kansas City seems stable. Josh Allen's got 2 of the best wide receiver tandems. If things went bad, they still now have to readjust to a run game. You got to trust in Devin Singletary, or you got to get somebody else at running back. Justin Herbert this week is going to have 2 of his top wide receivers back. Who did he have to deal with? He had to deal with DeAndre Carter, a kick and punt returner as a wide receiver, and he still was able to make plays. And along with Joshua Palmer, and everybody thinks Justin Herbert's overrated. These are a lot of these pressures that most quarterbacks deal with. But they don't listen and pay attention to media. But in the atmosphere for Green Bay, you have a young wide receiver core. You have a quarterback who's just getting his, and he's finding his own realm. And then you have a coach, Matt LaFleur, who is just very pristine, very, particular. Because I've said this about the Green Bay Packers. They are the Lamborghini that you take outside when it's sunny and it's a beautiful day. You're revving up the engines like you're big and bad. And then all of a sudden you go to a stoplight and then you see I drive a Toyota Tacoma, durable, reliable, and of course, something also that gets you through mountains, that gets you through the forests and all the rest of it. And Lamborghinis don't do that. Why? Because they don't want to scratch or dink or, mess up the vehicle. That's what Green Bay looked like on Thursday night. Unreliable, non-durable, and was not exactly the team that was able to innovate or restructure the playbook because Mike Vrabel was too busy socking you in the mouth. That's exactly what the Titans were. Tough, hard, and that's what the physical football was. We watched the 49ers be physical, but not as physical as what Tennessee is, and we don't talk about them a whole lot. But I think Mike Vrabel in this league is very much a top 5 head coach, easily. The fact that he came into this organization defensive-minded, yet trusts his offense, trusts a lot of his players. I don't know what he's going to do with as far as his offensive coordinator goes. I'm sure he's probably going to give him the boot or give him some sort of talking after we just found out he got a DUI after beating Green Bay. I'm sure he's going to have the talk. But nonetheless, he is definitely that type of head coach that knows exactly what he's doing. And the Titans, last time I checked, America, they have a winning record in a lopsided division in the AFC South. Everybody thought the Colts were going to end up winning it, but the Colts are a mess, and they're just playing for the time being. The Jags, they're cleaning everything up. They're not that prepared yet, but they're getting to that point. And then the Texans are just rebuilding. But nonetheless, we have brushed away about the Tennessee Titans because of the fact that they got upsetted by Cincinnati in the divisional playoffs as a number one seed and all the rest of it. But sometimes you have to go through those phases in order for you to find that core of what your team's identity really is. And I think I already know who they are. They're the kinds you step onto their home turf up in Nashville and they will pummel you to a pulp, and then they'll ship you back out, probably expedite you through FedEx, and then they'll just keep on going. All right, with that being said, I seem to always use that as my punchline every time when I'm up here up onto the show. So with that being said, so he covers Kansas City everything. Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City Royals. We got a lot to talk about as far as what's going on with the Royals there, but he is the guy that you can find Sports Talk with T, and that is Ty Owens. He is joining me now live via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. All right, so before we get to the Chiefs for a second, let's talk about their opponent they did face, which was the Tennessee Titans. So when the Chiefs faced them, this is what's so remarkable about the Titans. They played as hard as they could, and by the second half, they didn't allow a first down at all to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, which I think is remarkable. So they come into Lambeau knowing they came off of a emotional overtime loss, and then they go and then they're just pummeling Aaron Rodgers and the Packers on the road on a short week in Lambeau. I mean, how could we say what we look at with this Tennessee Titans team? I mean, they look tough. They look ferocious. Yep. They're the kind of team that you step on their turf, they're just going to sock you in the mouth, expedite you in FedEx, and then they're just going to keep on going through the rest of the season. What have you seen watching that game too with Kansas City and then in this game with Green Bay, what the Titans' identity is?
Their identity is stuffing the run and running the ball. When you watch it, the Chiefs, they were unable to run the ball on them. I know the Packers had a little bit more success with it, but when you look at it overall, the Titans are a very good run stuffing team, a very good defensive team, and they can run the ball. They can control the ball. And, if they have a game manager like Ryan Tannehill, if he can just not turn the ball over, then they're going to be in a good position to win more times than not.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the funny thing is they were without several starters, yet they were able to really take it to Green Bay and Lambeau. And the funny thing is I am really impressed by how strong the defense has been since, Harold Landry's been out the entirety of the season and a couple of these guys. So I guess you could say they really do know what it means when it comes to next man up on this roster, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Because even going back to that Chiefs game, I know they were a little bit beat up coming in. Even Jeffrey Simmons had some limited practices in there. So it is next man up down there because they got guys like Bud Dupree, who when he went down, Rashad Weaver stepped up and was able to create some pressure. So that defensive front, I really feel like is the heart and soul of that team, other than Derrick Henry, like of that defense. When you look at that defensive front, they got a really good defensive line. I mean, I think they have four guys with 5 sacks, 3 or 4 guys with 5 or more sacks this year. Bud Dupree, Jeffrey Simmons, and I'm missing a few guys in there. But yeah, that Titans defense is very tough defense. Mike Vrabel, like you said earlier, and I can't agree more, he's a top 5 coach in the NFL in my eyes. I mean, what he does, nobody does more with less like Mike Vrabel does.
Yeah, and
when you look at that roster, some coaches would not even be able to get this team to win that sad division, the AFC South.
Yeah, it's incredible because the fact that, I mean, we've all watched Mike Vrabel as a player in New England, and we watched how I think how energetic he really was on the field. I mean, I remember seeing it. I remember the time when Tom Brady threw him that touchdown pass and just how excited he was being up on the field, playing with a lot of grown men and really just, taking that experience and then thriving it with all these young players in Tennessee, I think is incredible. And to mention about the defensive front, I mean, think about it. They lost Jarrell Casey, which was a big time run stopper. And then yet the formula never changed. So I think that that's what's incredible. And people think, yeah, in a lopsided division like the South, I mean, the Colts right now are a mess. They're all
Yeah.
just kind of, I've said this over and over again. I think this was definitely ownership's responsibility for this, because when Jim Irsay's in one of his moods, he just wants to kick everybody out if you're
Yeah.
not on his good side. And then, you know, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is going to clean things up, because with him and Doug Peterson, it's going to take some time. They did get another wide receiver, and
Yeah.
hopefully by the time he's available, we may see a different Jacksonville team. And, Houston is Houston. They're rebuilding. It's unfortunate because of just what they've gone through now in the last few years.
Yeah.
But to see Tennessee, and they have a winning record, they stay stable. So I'm almost thinking that watching the playoffs, they're going to be one of those dangerous teams that
Yep.
even if they're not the number one seed, they're just going to haunt you anywhere that they are at. And maybe that's exactly how they shaped it in the last few years they've been in the playoffs.
Yep. It's because of their style of football, it translates so well in the postseason. When you talk about being able to run the ball, the weather's a little bit colder, being able to stop the run, and then just having, they lost that game to the Bengals last year, and it's because Ryan Tannehill turned the ball over 2 or 3 times in that game, and they still only lost, I believe it was like 3 or 7 points. It's a very close game. So they're a team you don't want to have to play. I mean, when you get in the playoffs and you're matched up with them, you're like, damn, I didn't want to get matched up with them, because they're just such a hard-nosed team.
Yeah, and anything could possibly happen
Yep.
by the end of it. You know what I mean? Ty Owens joining me here up on the show. So, all right, let's talk Kansas City. So, first and foremost, I mean, walking into the season, they lose Tyreek Hill in the offseason to Miami, and they got 5 draft picks. I mean, honestly, I'll take that. I'll take the 5 draft picks, and knowing that shedding some draft capital, and at the same time, it's giving me opportunities to spend the money elsewhere. So now, Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, he's thrown it to 10 different people, and they've all scored a touchdown. You still have a reliable target in Travis Kelce. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS, they've kind of been banged up a little bit, but there are some guys that have been stepping up. I do, however, want to talk about Kadarius Toney. I spoke about this to a Giants content creator. She's absolutely fantastic. And when I mentioned about this, I said, Kadarius Toney, he's not a Tyreek Hill, but he can give you the speed. He can give you the hands, and he could give you what he puts to the table for the Chiefs. What have you seen with Kadarius Toney now in the last 2 weeks that you're kind of feeling like this guy's going to help us to open more of this playbook? What do you think?
Well, I really think it has a lot to do with it only being 2 weeks, because he had 90 yards last week, and guys struggle to get in this offense. I mean, I've seen it in the past. Even, Josh Gordon, I wouldn't want to compare him to Kadarius Toney at this point in their careers, but Josh Gordon came in here. He was supposed to be somewhat of an X factor last year, and he never got it going, whatever. He could never learn the offense. Kadarius Toney, and I know Patrick Mahomes said this in a press conference, that he's been in the facility just as much as him. He's been willing to learn, talking to Mahomes, reaching out to him, having questions and stuff like that. So that willingness to learn, I think Andy Reid saw that and was eager to just, let's use this guy, because like you said, he does bring the speed element. There's one thing that he's a little bit taller than Tyreek Hill, as we've seen on that sideline catch on Sunday. Mahomes threw that jump ball up to him, and Mahomes, he don't throw up very many jump balls. So for him to do that shows that he's got a lot of trust in him, and it came really fast. So I just think the ceiling for Toney is very high, especially in this offense where he fits it so perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, like looking at Kadarius Toney, I mean, he needed something to give because of the fact of, just injury histories. And I mean, I did love watching him at Florida when he came in and watching that offense and how it was playing. I said, if you put him on a speed style offense, I mean, the Dolphins are built for speed. Kansas City could definitely utilize speed. There are some teams that could really utilize speed all around this league. I mean, that's what the league's transitioned to. But I think being in Kansas City and around people like Andy Reid, who is a terrific play designer and a play caller, and then you have Patrick Mahomes, who's just that unbelievable. He's just going to throw the ball exactly where it needs to be. And if they're in rhythm and communication is flowing, that's how Kansas City is just going to haunt you down the field. But think about too, like just the defensive portions of it, because we know that there's been a couple of hits. And I think the one thing about Kansas City, which I think will be tough, they are a playoff team, but if let's say you come into a matchup like against Buffalo again, or maybe potentially, I mean, I've been seeing Baltimore and Lamar Jackson throw the football well. And then even Tennessee, who they just know how to ground and pound. The one thing I think seeing Kansas City that is a struggle is the over-the-top coverage. I don't know if there's really a simple solution to that problem, how Kansas City may be able to do that. What do you think is something Steve Spagnuolo, for as long as he's been a defensive coordinator, how he can be able to adjust this and hopefully adjust it to the right time before playoffs?
Yeah, so what I think Steve Spagnuolo is doing right now is it's like trial by fire. We got all these young corners, and even in that last Chargers game, you've seen it. He likes to blitz so damn much. It kind of drives me crazy, man. I'm not gonna lie with all the blitzes he does, but it leaves some of these guys out on an island. And when you're going up against a guy like a Mike Williams, a Stephon Diggs, a Gabe, when you're going up against those kind of guys, they're gonna get beat. I mean, maybe Trent McDuffie will be able to hold his own. We'll see this week, but I really think it's trial by fire, but I think come playoff time, he's going to be willing to give more safety help, maybe less blitzes. But that also all starts with our defensive line being able to get pressure without having to blitz.
Yeah, and it is incredible because the fact that I've been very curious about how Trent McDuffie has really been doing. I watched him several times in Washington. I think he'll very much be a shutdown type corner, somebody that can match up to speed very well. But even too, losing Travarius Ward, I mean, I'm sure that had to have taken a hit for Kansas City, but yet picking up Reed from San Francisco, you're just kind of, not saying getting by, but you're kind of utilizing a lot of just what secondaries you got. And then in order to really mesh with them as far as the passing game goes on the opposing sides and trying to shut it down any way you possibly can. Because I've said this several times. I've said the one person I know has been a liability has been Daniel Sorensen.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy literally was he was such a liability. Anytime I watched him through the field, it's like he's hit or miss. He either does get it or he just completely gets burnt. So, all right. So big game Sunday night. And listen, me personally as a Charger fan, I don't throw my fandom here in the show, but I really have been enjoying this, and for the next few years ahead. I mean, this is like a 15, close to a 17-year rivalry between Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So the first meet, I loved how pressurizing the atmosphere was in week 2, because I thought that was what all of us as football fans, Thursday Night Football on Amazon, the first game you kick it off is the Chargers and Chiefs. Like that was set for success. So watching that game, I mean, the Chargers have had a history of just injuries after injuries. I mean, almost 18 to 20 plus. They're getting Keenan Allen back. They're getting Mike Williams back. And we all know Kansas City does not like Mike Williams at times because of the fact of him situationally. So watching through this game, I have my prime predictions. And one of my predictions is I feel like, because the entirety of this season, nobody has been able to score more than 7. They've all scored less. So there's been a lot of dogs this year. But I would definitely take, the line's been 5.5 so far. I think I would take the plus 5.5 because of the fact of the games that I've watched, and this rivalry's been so damn close.
It's been close so every game,
good. Yeah, it's so good that I'm like, I'll take the points. But I think there's a potentiality that after the first meet with the Chargers, I think there might be an upset alert against Kansas City this week. What do you think the atmosphere and the pressure may be for the Chiefs?
Yeah, so I really feel like honestly, there's more pressure on the Chargers to win this game,
Yeah.
going into it, because the backs are kind of against the wall, 5-4, right?
Mhm.
So they're going to be, if they don't win this game, the division's not necessarily over,
Right.
but it would be kind of hard for them to, come back and win that division. So I do think, that pressure, but I do think they're going to rise to the occasion, man. I think Mike Williams, one of my predictions, Mike Williams over whatever yardage you think, because it's going to happen.
And you think maybe a couple touchdown scores, maybe?
Yeah.
That
That one-handed catch he had that last game, that was
Oh,
nice.
that was insane. But I will say this, and real question for you.
Mm-hmm.
That one play that got overturned, did you believe that was a catch, or did that really hit
You
the
talking
ground?
about the interception?
Yep.
Well, when I first saw it, I was like, I couldn't see a way they could overturn that call. I'm gonna be 100% honest.
Oh man, I was just like, that is so brutal. And for a guy like Asante Samuel Jr.,
Yeah.
who's just in year 2, he's really been showing up.
Yeah, he
And
has.
to have that taken away, and yet in the outcome, Justin Herbert's ribs get cracked, and yet throws an
He delivered that dime.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell is he? It's like he's not really from this planet Earth.
Nope.
It's like, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, funny thing was, when I saw the first game, I was literally in Colorado. I was a few minutes from Denver watching it up in Parker at one of the bars there. And yeah, so I'm in Bronco country watching the Chiefs and Chargers, and I'm literally telling Denver fans, I'm like, you guys are probably on our sides because we know how we feel about Kansas City, but it's like, but again, you got to love the AFC West though, and how just entertaining that it is. So, speaking of that, because the West right now, with the way the competition has been playing, Denver looks like a mess.
Yeah.
Chargers have just been suffering injuries, and then the Raiders, I don't know really what to think of them. They're obviously not giving up on Josh McDaniels, but I have a feeling Derek Carr, with the way it's trending, he might not be a Raider next year. And I think that's tough because of the fact, it's tough because Devontae Adams, you lured him into the facility and for the franchise, and now things have just been going south. I mean, what have you thought of the AFC West so far?
It's not lived up to expectations. I mean, before this season, I said this is the toughest division in football, and I mean, I thought 3 teams could make it out of make it to the playoffs out of this division, but it's really not lived up to expectations. I think the Chargers is one thing because of all the injuries. But the Raiders and Broncos, what's going on in Vegas? I mean, you got Derek Carr, and like you said, they lured Devontae Adams in. I 100% agree with you. I think Derek Carr is going to be gone. Yeah. Because they saved money. He's not playing well. Josh McDaniels probably wants to go and draft, especially if they're high in the draft. Why wouldn't you go get a guy like a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young? But what's going on in Vegas? I just don't get why, and this is one thing I've said, and people might disagree with me. I don't get why they fired or why they moved on from Rich Bisaccia last year. I thought he coached very well. After taking over for Gruden, he got that team to the playoffs. They weren't destined for the playoffs last year. Let's be honest. I mean, before he took over, nobody was picking them to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, with all the mess and the turmoil that they've had to deal with the John Gruden thing, and then all of a sudden Henry Ruggs, then Damon Arnett and all the rest. It's just like, flies were just dropping. Yep. And one of the big thing is, and somebody said this too on one of the shows, but with the way the Raiders run, they're not a smart team. They've never have been. Like that's not what the identity has always been for years in this franchise. This franchise has been built around culture, rebels of the NFL. That's what Al Davis, that's what he planted. He planted culture and how hardened that this franchise is. But when you get smart guys like Ziegler, and then you get Josh McDaniels, all from New England, you're trying to innovate and trying to change things. But it all soils down to culture. Yeah. And so to me, I agree with you. I felt like Rick Bisaccia was a culture guy. Even though that he was coming in a in an unprecedented time to where, like, a lot of turmoil is happening. We got to just keep this boat afloat. And sure enough, they make it into the playoffs. And by the way, that loss against Cincinnati wasn't even that bad. It was a close game. All it took was just one play. And then Cincinnati, they're the ones who, they're the ones who basically succeeded the play. Like, they knocked it down. If the Raiders would have made that, people probably wouldn't even be talking ill about him. And that's where I'm kind of like, all it takes is just one play to make a difference. But yeah, I think this AFC West, and we're starting to see this right now with the AFC East and NFC East.
Yep.
What the hell? Like, a lot of these teams now have all just been playing outside of the expectations that everybody's been playing, right?
Yep. You got the Giants and the Jets. We used to call it the NFC least. Well, we can't call it that anymore because the way that, I was really shocked because, honestly, I thought the AFC West, like I said, was going to be the toughest division. But in the AFC, it's definitely the East, and it might overall be the AFC East. I like the NFC East a lot. They got Philly, they got Dallas, they got the Giants and Washington, but I still question the Giants a little bit. I'm not so sold on them yet. I'm more sold on the Jets. I'm not so sold on the Patriots, but they still got Bill Belichick. They'll find ways to win.
Yeah, I think ultimately, New England, they seriously just need to find the right people in the right places.
Yep.
The fact that you have a defensive coordinating mind playing offense and then a special teams guy playing the defensive calls, I don't know what the hell that's all about. But I'm with you. And then honestly, we're very skeptical about Daniel Jones for the moment, but we know Brian Daboll is the guy. He is that head coach that was prepared for this in a big market like New York. He's found the heartbeat to this team. They've had one winning season in 10 years. And that's insane. So to play like this and Saquon Barkley playing the healthiest he's ever been, it's incredible. But yeah, I think the NFC East, because the Philadelphia Eagles, they're playing great. Dallas is leaning more towards their defense and situational play. I don't think Dak Prescott is really all that. I just think he's really just that component to this offense that's really, helping to flow it, helping them to, at the very least, get the best of them. And, the Giants, Brian Daboll's great. And Washington, they're just living off of the Heineke moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Washington may end up doing down the road, but that's left to be said. Real quick, so the Kansas City Royals, so this was interesting to me. I caught this on the corner of my eye, and to see this, you've been to Kauffman Stadium many times. And I think it's a beautiful stadium.
It is.
I do think with the waterfalls, with that backdrop right there in center field. And by the way, I said this, my favorite World Series, I kid you not, Giants-Royals 2014. I thought that was my favorite World Series because both teams were playing small ball. Yep. Both teams' pitching staffs were great. They were pitching situationally out of their minds. And all it took, and this is funny, we watched the playoffs in the NFL. All it took was one play.
Yep.
In that postseason, in that World Series, all it took was just one hit. All it took was one hit to change things. And and for as close as that game was, Alex Gordon was 90 feet away.
He should have got sent home. I still say that.
And it's just but Kansas City, it was so difficult against a guy like Madison Bumgarner. But I enjoyed it because of how close that game was.
Yep.
And it felt so energetic. So there's talk about a new stadium. I'm a little shocked because I'm watching the years with, watching rerun tapes of George Brett and that 85 Royals team, and then what they were from 14 and to 15. That's interesting, don't you think? I would have never seen something like this come up. So what were your thoughts when the news broke out about a potential stadium plan for the Royals?
Well, they had been kind of talking about it, and they were like, oh, we're just going over our options. We're really not looking into that. And then this happened during the offseason. I think it just all starts with the new owner. He wants to build something different. He wants to, kind of change things around here. I think Kauffman Stadium is honestly, I'll say it, a top 10 stadium in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not been to very many other stadiums, but I love Kauffman Stadium. I love going there. And the problem with they want to move the stadium downtown, well, downtown Kansas City doesn't have very much like public transportation like some other cities. So people are going to be having to walk a lot, or, parking situations going to be a little messed up, not unless they build some garages or something like that. But it wasn't very shocking to me just because of, it's been talked about, kind of brought up. But a lot of people around here don't think we need a new stadium. I personally don't think we need one, but I mean, he wants to build one and he don't want to charge any more tax money, then certainly go ahead and build it. But, that's not how that works. So,
yeah, I find that really interesting. And I tell a lot of people, like, when it comes to stadium plans, it's not that simple. You really have to think about the city itself, the landmarks. You have to think about the population and how it's able to attract, whether it's locals or it's tourists that come out, to Kansas City. I mean, I've heard a lot of great things of Kansas City. I mean, to me, I'm a foodie person and I'm down for Kansas City barbecue. So I have yet to visit Kansas City and see what it's like up over there. But I did have a family member of mine who's lived in St. Louis. And she's told me a lot about what the vibe is, especially sports teams. If you're either a fan of Kansas City or St. Louis, some of the times they don't really like that much of each other.
Yeah,
you're either on one side or the other of that I-90 belt. So it's like, but it's a great atmosphere. But it is interesting, though, because Kauffman Stadium, I agree with you. I think it's a beautiful stadium. I do think that just the infrastructure of the stadium itself. I mean, the backdrop, the fountains. And then, of course, too, I mean, on that left field side where you got all the Hall of Fame names
Hall of Fame,
there,
that's pretty cool, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually tell you this. This is a little small story before we go. But believe it or not, one of those Kansas City Royals Hall of Famers, number 29, you remember exactly who that is?
I'll be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. 29.
So, Mike Sweeney.
Okay, yep.
He was an all-time, first baseman, DH guy. So believe it or not, my stepdad, my pops, he was actually the starting catcher in high school, and his backup was Mike Sweeney.
Wow, that's crazy.
And the crazy thing about this, and this was in California. This was all up like near Chaffee High School up in Ontario. And how Mike Sweeney even got up to being in the major leagues was because of one crucial play. It was a collision at the plate, and it blew his knee, and that's how Mike Sweeney was able to get in.
That's crazy.
And sure enough, the rest of the history, he's now a Kansas City Royal Hall of Famer. Like, I wanted to tell you that because I was like, knowing the Kansas City Royals, like, that's a crazy freaking story.
Yeah,
but it's like, but I love baseball. I've grown up watching baseball guy. But I love sharing, those memories and stories because it's like, it's crazy to believe
that is.
Yeah. But yeah. Ty, it's been great, man, honestly. And it'll be interesting to watch this game tomorrow night. And I mean, I love this rivalry. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, those two, like, we can agree to disagree. I think those two are primed to be. Patrick Mahomes already has a Super Bowl on his belt. But at some point, Justin Herbert's going to have one. And I think this will be a great narrative because it's two great quarterbacks in the same division. And
in the same era.
Right. And the both of them are kind of standing in each other's way of greatness. And of course, of, getting that team over the hump through whether it's the regular season or the postseason. Like, that's what's so exciting about it in the NFL today. So I have yet to see those moments there. But, man, this has literally been a rivalry in 15 years in the making that I will not stop watching the television.
Me too.
because it's insane. But yeah, it was great having you up on here,
Yeah,
Ty.
thanks. Thanks for having me.
We'll definitely do this again. So for all of our listeners and viewers, where can people find your social medias?
Yeah, so you can find me at the Sports Talk with T on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And then also, I've been working with the Sports Empire Network a little bit, so you can find me over there. And then post game, you can find me over at the Arrowhead Chief podcast. Normally we do a post game show after the game, but since it's late, we're going to go ahead and do it Monday.
All right. Well, there you go. That's where you can find Ty Owens, Sports Talk. Absolutely, man. Sports Talk with T. That's where you'll find him. And of course, tune in, guys, because after this show, we've definitely got a Chiefs Chargers preview. So, of course, you're seeing a little bit of the preview now, but wait till you get into the actual fans' reaction of the preview. You don't want to miss that. That'll be at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely tune in. All right, Ty. Well, we'll definitely see you later here. Have a great weekend, and we will definitely see you a little later on.
Yep. Thanks, man.
Not a problem. All right, Ty Owens there for you. I mean, great Kansas City guy. And you know what? It is interesting, though, because, again, as a Major League Baseball fan, thinking about that, about Kauffman Stadium is just insane. Like, I love the look and the infrastructure of this ballpark. I think it's crazy to me to think that even such a plan like this would be in the works. It's kind of crazy. I really hope that they kind of rethink the decision, because it's like, you have a ballpark. Everybody goes and watches the Royals play. They watch their respective teams. I never understood that. Like, for any sports team, if it's relocating, I can understand. Like the Golden State Warriors, they relocated from Oakland to San Francisco, a little bit closer, because it's more expensive. It also pays out more. Silicon Valley. The Raiders moving from Oakland to Las Vegas, they got Allegiant Stadium. It's right close to where the Strip is, but there are still some projects that they have to deal with there. But the other part is that you talk about the Oakland A's. I don't know what you deal with that. I don't know what you do, because I've said it several times. I think they would be fine here in Las Vegas. I think they would definitely be the one team. They'll get themselves a new ballpark. It's going to push a lot of big time markets like the Dodgers, the Astros, the Mets, the Yankees, even the Angels. A lot of these big money market teams out here to Las Vegas. And again, this town, as I've said before in several episodes on my show, this is a football, baseball driven town. Like basketball, not as big, but we have the summer leagues, and the NBA is soon to be coming here in Las Vegas. We were never a hockey town until the Golden Knights happened in 2017. And they're playing great right now. They made it to the Stanley Cup final in the first year, and that's where they set their mark. And now we've got arena football is back. Professional lacrosse is back. I would love to see a game like that, because lacrosse, my mother loves lacrosse. She had it in the East Coast up in New York. It was big there. It's a big East Coast type of sport. And then you also have arena football. So now they have the Vegas Vipers. And Rod Woodson, by the way, is the head coach of the team. And a notable name, of course, Martavis Bryant ended up getting drafted to the Vegas Vipers. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see, the XFL. And I'd love to, at the very least, see an XFL game in Allegiant Stadium, because I think that'd be great. I think it'd be amazing. All right. So, of course, we're bottom half of the hour. And then by the time that we're done with prime predictions, I'll be talking a little bit more about the impacts of Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins. So yeah, last week we were 8-6. And we dodged a bullet last week, because I was going through 2, I think, or 3 straight losses. And then all of a sudden the wins started picking up. So I'm really confident about what this week is going to look like. And so week 11, prime predictions, all odds are provided by Super Draft Pro. For those that don't know, Super Draft Pro is a more innovative app, sports betting app, and of course, daily fantasy app. Great designs. And of course, there's so much that you could utilize on the apps itself, building your daily fantasy roster every day of the week. And that's in all major sports, plus sports betting book. They also have several different odds. Place your bets in and win cool prizes as well as you accumulate more super coins. That's what guarantees you more prizes and different contests. Also, there is now new player prop bets. So, of course, over-under on player performances on every sport of every team. So definitely download on your mobile device through Google Play or the App Store, Super Draft Pro, also the Sportsbook app. Download them like a pro, sign up like a pro, and let them know Jake the Snake sent you. And then share with your friends and family and coworkers like a pro and set your lineup and bets like a pro with Super Draft Pro. So with that being said, week 11, let's get it going. Let's turn it up. It's Jake's Prime Predictions. Bears at Falcons. All right, so a half. There's a reason why that I'm going with the underdog Bears. I love the Falcons as underdogs, but the fact that at home they are favored, I'm kind of in the ropes here with this game. But here's what is good about this matchup. Chicago and Justin Fields is looking better in the offensive side of things. Atlanta, I watched them on Thursday night. Marcus Mariota is starting to regress. This is looking pretty bad. I think at some point, if you're the Falcons, you got to test out your new rookie, Desmond Ridder, because I want to see how he plays on the field. I've seen him in preseason. I thought he looks great. I think there's a really good future amongst him, but I want to see more of him. And Drake London, he's been a really, really good player. Kind of has had some ups and downs, but of course, that's the flow of this offense. So I'm going to take the Chicago Bears. With the way that things have been working, Luke Getsy's been very phenomenal with play design. I'm going to take the Bears to win 27-23 over the Falcons. Browns at Bills. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. By the way, it is snowing hard out there in Buffalo. And so because of the way that things have been playing out, the time changes, they say that they're going to move it to Detroit. But at first I thought this was going to be a Cleveland game. But because after hearing the news of it, I'm sticking with Buffalo in this one because the time changes, the travels, all the rest of it. I feel bad for both these teams. But here's the other thing. The Bills, they play Detroit next week. So I think what's the best possibility is Buffalo goes to Detroit, they stay in Detroit, and then play the Lions afterward, and then seeing exactly how the state of Buffalo is really looking like out there in New York. But right now, Cleveland, I mean, they played a tough game against Miami, and Jacoby Brissett is as I had predicted. He is the guy that's going to win you games, but not win you all the games. But the run, it's still crucial. But I think this will be a tougher matchup knowing that the defense, they have lost some key players, but they are playing hard to Sean McDermott's strengths when it comes to the defense. So I'm going to take the Bills, and because of the way that the travels have been running so far, I'm taking them to win 27-17. Eagles at Colts. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles -6.5. The Colts, look, they're coming off of a lucky win against, not lucky, but I think it was more deserving because the Raiders are just falling apart. Now, they do have Jeff Saturday as an interim head coach. I think he'll be a really good one because of the fact of being a former player and he's energetic. Listen, this decision was a Jim Irsay decision, mind you, about the Colts. But the Eagles, they're coming off of a hard loss against the Commanders and Taylor Heineke. So what do most teams do when they get embarrassed? They bounce back and they go to win their next matchup. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win here 28-21, -6.5. I think part of that is we've seen how close that the Eagles get, but against a team like this with the Colts, I would like to see how Jalen Hurts really bounces back after that loss. Jets at Patriots. I'm going to take the New England Patriots -3. Now, a lot of people think it's going to be a potential upset against the Patriots with the Jets. The Jets have been playing real good, but here's the problem. As I've said over and over again, Zach Wilson, he needs to correct a lot of his mistakes. I don't know if he can, because in the end, there's so much that I could literally look at and just go, I don't know if this really will work. I think part of it is like the defense has been playing really, really good. Now, Mac Jones has not looked exactly his best, but knowing Bill Belichick, he's going to find every and all ways to win. So I'm going to take the Patriots to win at home in Gillette Stadium. As hard as this game is, 24-21, Patriots -3.5. Rams at Saints. I'm going to take the LA Rams here in this game because knowing, with where the state of the LA Rams are, they've been playing hard football so far because of the fact of injuries have been a big factor. They're missing a lot of their offensive line. It has not looked that good. Cam Akers is kind of the running back we predicted looking like it. But I'm going to take them +3.5 against the New Orleans Saints. They've got Andy Dalton behind at quarterback, which is really interesting that he beat the job against Jameis Winston. So, and by the way, Michael Thomas is out. They do have Chris Olave, and they do have at least a couple of key players. But because of the Rams, they still got at least a decent defense. But the offense has to get going without Cooper Kupp. So what does that mean? That means Allen Robinson needs to get going. Because between him and Van Jefferson this week, that is going to be a tough matchup and a tough place to play. But I do think that the Rams will overcome that. And I do think they'll go on the road knowing how tough their season has been. I'm going to take them to win 24-20. It's not going to be a pretty game, but I'll take the +3.5. Lions at Giants. I'm going to take the New York Giants here at home. Now, they did end up agreeing they're changing up the turf to a more natural type grass, like artificial grass. I think this will be great for MetLife Stadium. But I'm going to take the Giants behind that. Knowing that Detroit, when Jared Goff is not comfortable at Ford Field, he tends to regress. And I don't know if the Detroit Lions really do have it in them to go against the Giants on the road. I'd take the Giants -2.5 here in this game because Brian Dable's just been incredible situationally. And I don't know if Dan Campbell really does have it in him to really bite some kneecaps this weekend. Knowing you've got Saquon Barkley, healthiest he's ever been, I think the Giants, they're really going to utilize a lot of their run game. I'm going to take them to win 24-17 comfortably at home against the Lions. Panthers at Ravens. I'm going to take Carolina's +13 because, first of all, that is a ridiculous number that you're asking Lamar Jackson to put up 13 points against clearly a horrible yet rebuilding team in Carolina. I'm going to take +13. I do think Baltimore will win this game, but that is a lot of points to swallow. I don't know if they really do have it in them to make it past that, but I think Carolina is going to show up in some particular way. Now, Baker Mayfield is starting because P.J. Walker, he's hurt now for the remainder of the couple weeks that they have. But Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback. I don't know if it will get to that point. I think it'll be tough, but I think it'll be closer than we think. 30-20, Baltimore wins this one. Lamar Jackson just has a field day. And by the way, the defense is just going to be scaring Baker Mayfield all on the field. Commanders at Texans. I'm going to take the Washington Commanders on the road. I know a lot of people thought that Houston would at least have a chance. I do love Dameon Pierce, by the way. He's been an absolute hit at running back. Another one of those real good running backs next to Kenneth Walker, who is an absolute story. I do love this. I think that Taylor Heineke beating the Philadelphia Eagles really got them some juice. So I think they'll be going on the road against the Texans. And by the way, Chase Young will be active. So Chase Young, they're getting their pass rusher back. The defense, I think, might end up looking a little different. Maybe too much for Davis Mills. So I'm going to take the Commanders to win 27-23 on the road. Houston drops another one, but they're itching closer for more picks. Raiders at Broncos. I'm going to take the Broncos to win this game, but I'm taking the Raiders at +2.5 because of the fact that both teams have been a mess. The Broncos right now are not exactly the team that they really are looking like, even with Russell Wilson with a wristband on. Now we're figuring out that he's been playing codes from Seattle that nobody in Denver even knows what the hell he's talking about. So I think this will be a mess of a game. But I do think that the defense of Denver, because they're #1 scoring defense in the league, even with their offense being last in the league in offense. So I think Denver, it's going to be a hard time for Derek Carr to really get the football out. But I'm going to expect Denver to win this game. 3 points is all we need to swallow. I'm going to take it 23-20. Denver wins in that mile-high altitude, and the Raiders shrink. Cowboys at Vikings. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings here +1.5. I do like this number, though, because of how close and emotional that game against the Bills were for the Vikings. But Kevin O'Connell is just a damn good coach, and he really has been able to utilize all the strengths that the Vikings have been able to display this year. They're 8-1, and they are running this NFC North. The Cowboys are coming off the hard loss against the Green Bay Packers, which the Packers got upset by the Titans. And one other thing to look at, I mean, the Cowboys, they've been playing really good defensively, and they had a 14-point lead before they coughed it up. I don't think that you would want to do that against a Minnesota team, which, by the way, their pass rush in Minnesota is really good. Darius Smith is looking really good. They've got Lance Kendricks. So I expect this to be a really damn good, entertaining game. Justin Jefferson now has to face CeeDee Lamb. That's going to be a lot of fun. 30-28 at home. Vikings are going to be strolling around the field against the Cowboys. Bengals at Steelers. I'm going to take the Bengals on the road because right now, this Steelers team is such a pop gun offense, and you can't do that against a team that in the second half of games for the defense, they've been situationally good. Now, they're coming off of a bye. They've got plenty of rest. Joe Burrow and the Bengals have been looking really hot, and this is without Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase, he'll be coming back sooner, but the Bengals offense, they still work with what they've got. I think it's been really, really good for them. I'm going to take the Bengals here on the road to win 27-23. Kenny Pickett, he'll have some spurts in the game, but I don't think it's going to be as tough as people think it is because of the AFC North matchup. I think the Bengals are just too good. I think they're going to try to run the football more efficiently. So I see the Bengals winning this one on the road. Chiefs at Chargers. The toughest game, of course, on a Sunday night. Back-to-back Sunday night games. Give me the Chargers +5.5. Listen, this has always been such a great rivalry between Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I love this matchup so much. Week 2 was a huge narrative. They only lost by 3, which means both quarterbacks have been very efficient. Both defenses have been really good situationally. I mean, by the way, here's what's crazy. Even if San Francisco won 22-16, how do you end up with a game that close with both your top wide receivers out and plenty of defensive guys that have been hurt? That is insane. It's insane. And I think the Chargers know they have the backs against the wall and the pressure is so high. I think that if you come into SoFi Stadium on a Sunday night knowing they've got plenty of rest, the Chargers have been eyeballing this game for weeks. And I think they're going to definitely do some damage here. I think both teams are going to be looking really efficient. Chiefs on the road against the Chargers. Give me that 5.5. I think the Chargers do pull an upset against the Chiefs. 29-24. 49ers at Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals +8, even though I do think the 49ers will win this game. First of all, did any of us watch the offense last Sunday night against the Chargers? They were struggling to at least get some efficiency. Now, they did find the click into the run game, but passing-wise, Jimmy Garoppolo, they've got to be better at that because they haven't been able to play really good as far as moving the ball downfield on the passes. So I think San Francisco, in a game like this with +8, I'm going to take that. I know the Cardinals have been horrible. They've been struggling. I think they need to find a new coaching regime. But to me, I think the Niners go on the road beating the Cardinals, but I don't think it's going to be a -8 and beyond. I think it'll be close this way, so I'm going to take the Niners to win 28-20. Niners win, but I think they fix up the messes on the passing offense. Boy, like I said, I've been confident on all these picks this week, and the fact that we've got that many dogs, I think it's incredible. So I am taking a lot of these dog teams. So I actually did take Tennessee, and I got the win on that one as a +3. I'm taking Chicago, the Rams, the Panthers 13, even though knowing Baltimore will win this game, the Raiders, the Vikings, the Chargers, and then, of course, the Cardinals with San Francisco winning. And here's the funny thing. This is an even balance of dogs and favorites because the only favorites I have are Buffalo, Philly, New England, the Giants, Commanders, and then the Bengals. So I think that's good. That's fair enough. I think that'll be something that will be worth watching. But I'm really excited about how these picks are. By the way, for everybody to know, since we're closing up this show, I thank everybody for being here with me this Saturday morning. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. Tomorrow is the first day of the FIFA World Cup, U.S. against Wales. I do expect the men's national team to come out on top against Wales. It's going to be tough. Christian Pulisic, he's going to be such a magnificent player to watch. I can't wait for that tomorrow. Plus, this weekend is championships weekend in college football. You don't want to end up missing that. We're getting closer to the college football playoffs, and it has been fantastic to watch. So you guys don't want to end up missing that. College football, FIFA World Cup. And by the way, it's MLB free agency today. So there is so much happening up in sports, and we love this. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching me. I appreciate all of you guys for being here with me this morning. iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and on the Fox D network. That is where you can find me, and like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications on the show. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show.